Welcome to Analysis. I'm John Rees. Donald Trump's recent free association diatribe on foreign relations managed to offend Panama, which is, in Trump's view, unreasonably not gifting the US the Panama Canal, Canada and Greenland, who are unreasonably not willing to be part of the US, and Mexico, who don't feel happy with Trump's plan to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. We have this report on Trump's recent statements.
Donald Trump has issued threats aimed at Panama and Greenland in a remarkable series of statements 2 weeks ahead of being sworn in as President of the United States.
I'm not going to commit to that.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on Tuesday declined to rule out military or economic action as part of his desire to have the U.S. take back control of the Panama Canal and acquire the Danish territory of Greenland.
No, I can't assure you on either of those two, but I can say this. We need them for economic security.
The extraordinary statement came as Trump further outlined an expansionist agenda 2 weeks before he is sworn into office on January 20th in Washington.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran.
Trump suggested he would impose tariffs on Denmark if it resists his offer to purchase Greenland, which he said is vital to U.S. national security. Denmark has said Greenland is not for sale. Aya Chemnitz is a Greenlandic member of the Danish parliament.
It's a question of whether should we maybe collaborate a bit more with the US. We shouldn't be bought by anyone because Greenland is not for sale and Greenland will not be for sale, but we can have a closer collaboration on business development with the US.
Her comments come as Trump's eldest son, Donald Jr., on Tuesday, arrived in Greenland's capital Nuuk on a private visit. When it comes to Panama, its president, Jose Raul Molino, has previously rejected the notion of turning the canal back to the U.S., which had owned it before handing over control to Panama in 1999.
We gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion, more so maybe than the hostages.
The press conference, Trump's second since he won the November 5th election, took place one day after Congress formally certified his victory.
Nobody's ever won so many cases as I have.
Panama's foreign minister rejected Trump's claims out of hand. Trump went on to say that he is going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
The Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
Trump's refusal to rule out military as well as economic force to further his plan for territorial expansion has set alarm bells ringing around the globe. But Trump also extended the threat of economic sanctions to Canada, against whom he repeated his earlier assertion that the US's northern neighbor should not be an independent country at all, but merely the 51st state of America. Outgoing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said there was not a snowball's chance in hell of Canada becoming part of the US. France's foreign minister responded to Trump's threats against Greenland, which is part of Denmark, by asserting that the EU would defend member states from all threats. Trump's pre-inauguration outburst is not the only sign of how disruptive his presidency could be for global stability. His self-described first buddy, billionaire Elon Musk, has made a series of incendiary remarks about the UK, which has brought public rebuttals from Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Health Secretary Wes Streeting. Another billionaire who seems unable to resist the Trump effect is Facebook owner Mark Zuckerberg, who has announced that he will now follow Musk's example at X and allow unchecked fake news to circulate on his platforms, making them more Trump-friendly.
It's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram.
Meta Platform CEO Mark Zuckerberg said on Tuesday his company will end its U.S. fact-checking program and replace it with a user-driven system similar to community notes on Elon Musk's X platform. Zuckerberg also said Meta will reduce the curbs on discussions around contentious topics, such as immigration and gender identity.
We've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms.
The move marks a reversal in Meta's policy, as Zuckerberg has long championed active content moderation, despite criticism from conservatives over alleged censorship on its platform. It also comes shortly after the company named Republican policy executive Joel Kaplan as global affairs head, and elected Dana White, CEO of Ultimate Fighting Championship and a close friend of President-elect Donald Trump, to its board.
We're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams.
Some of Meta's fact-checking partners were surprised by the policy change, while others, including Reuters, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's X has come under fire for loosening its content moderation rules. The European Commission is investigating X over dissemination of illegal content in the EU and the effectiveness of measures taken to combat information manipulation, including the Community Notes system. For its part, Meta says it has no immediate plan to end third-party fact-checking in the EU.
Trump may behave more cautiously in office than his recent outbursts suggest, as he did in his first term as president. Then controversial sidekicks like campaign organizer and mouthpiece Steve Bannon were cast aside when they became too prominent. Trump may be more circumscribed in office, and Musk may go the same way as Bannon. But Trump is now in his final term with no election to win in 4 years' time. So Trump Unleashed may last through his swearing in and into his time in office.
So, how seriously should we take all this? Will Trump's pre-inauguration bluster actually become policy in 2 weeks' time when he enters the Oval Office? There are already reports from insiders that Trump finds Elon Musk irritating and needy. So will Musk be cast aside as Steve Bannon, probably closer to Trump during his first election than Musk is now, was then? And how much does this matter, since Trump's foreign policy will have to be more concerned with the Ukraine, the Middle East and China than with Greenland and Panama? Well, let's talk about all this with Dr Noman Hanif, Director of the London Centre of International Relations. Dr Hanif, welcome to the programme. First of all, how much of this do you think is Trump using the kind of golden window between being elected and taking office to sound off? And how much do you think will actually be serious policy once he's in the Oval Office?
I think the way to understand this is that the mask has been taken off by both China and Russia with regard to the idea that empires had effectively were a part of history. So the idea of what is Russian interest, their Lebensraum, and Chinese interest in terms of their position in the South China Sea, the ignoring of international rules, the rules-based order. What Trump is doing is effectively following that line. It's basically a dumping of multilateralism, and it's basically America first, and essentially exposing the notion what America had been doing for decades, which is looking at its national security, looking at the position of national security, but unlike the Democrats and others who came before him, by hiding those particular plans and policies under rule-based order issues, he's just basically taken the mask off and said, look, this is what is or has always been American national security policy, and I'm just going to openly tell you that what it is.
And what do you think the kind of order of priority is here? Because even if we accept that there is some national security interest involved in Greenland or the Panama Canal, they're not really on the order of the Ukraine war, the Middle East or China. So what exactly is he doing?
So if you look at Greenland, I mean, that does have a very strong strategic concept because they've already got a base there. which is a monitoring base of Russian and Chinese vessels, although it's more related to the Arctic issues. And the Panama Canal, as you know, is an issue regarding trade. Now, there are key strategic areas. There are these key strategic issues, and what Trump is messaging, I think, to Europe in particular, and the rest of from China and Russia. And as you know, he's got a soft spot for Putin and any strong leaders. He's just saying that is their national security. This is our national security, and we are going to openly discuss this, what it is.
So do you think this is more, if we were to try and sort of rationalize this, that it's more about America is going to be great in its backyard and not so much further afield?
Not necessarily. America's the thing is, the Monroe Doctrine is still very alive. John Bolton, who was the former Secretary of State under Trump in his previous administration, at that time made a statement that the Monroe Doctrine still stands, and we rule the Americas. That is what his specific statement was. The reality of the backyard of the America is that America does rule the backyard. I mean, it intervenes when it wants to. It plays behind the scenes in terms of the economic issues regarding those countries, and as well as interference in their political issues. It is basically a colony of the United States in terms of resources. But with the rest of the world, of course, it cannot retract from that. The United States is a global power, and it will also look to strengthen its global position, but in recognition that China and Russia are there as competitors in some regions, and that will need to be aggressively tackled.
And what do we make of the threats against Canada and the argument that Canada should become a state of America? I mean, he stopped short of saying that military force would be used against Canada, but didn't stop short of saying that economic force would be used. I mean, this is not the normal frame of even kind of, realist international relations.
I think, many people have opinions about this. I mean, it does come out not out of the blue as such, because there's always been these kind of expansionist sentiments within America on this issue. But I think one has to look at the Canada statement in the context of Britain, because Britain has a lot of influence in Canada, and this is what I think Trump would consider to be the unfinished business of the War of Independence. In that Canada was not absorbed in the States. So there it is, like you said before, part of it is to do with the American Lebensraum in its area. And if you look at the way that both him and Musk are behaving, they're behaving like the Roman Emperor and his consul general, which were, it is basically a declaration of Rome, that we are the Roman Empire and we are going to expand, and we're going to expand in what we consider to be our strategic interests.
Yes, well, there was one Roman emperor who made his horse a consul, so I guess that we've stopped just short of that with Elon Musk. Do you think Musk will last? I mean, Steve Bannon didn't last.
I think he will, because I think what's gone unnoticed is that Elon Musk is very powerful, for two reasons. Number one, Trump did not have the finances to fund this election campaign that he went on. The funds primarily came from Elon Musk. That's first thing. Secondly, last time Trump got blocked on what is now X, and which was Twitter at the time. And this time he's got the power of X behind him, and has so because of these two issues, and also because I think that essentially, like I said, Musk is now the consul and he's really the power behind the throne.
So you don't take too seriously some of the stories in the press, allegedly from Trump insiders, saying that the fact that Musk has got a cottage, as I believe it's described, at Mar-a-Lago is irritating Trump, that he finds Musk a bit too needy, a bit too claustrophobic?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the statements that he's made regarding the Europe with regards to Britain or Spain or Germany, Trump's not said anything. He's not said a word about whether this is correct or incorrect. He just basically let Musk run loose on these issues. And remember, Musk was also included in discussions with Putin and other leaders as part of the inner circle. So Musk is in a very powerful position, and I don't think, yes, there will be, because both are very strong characters, and there has been a slight kind of clash on the issue of visa migrants, economic visa migrants, which of course Musk needs for his business empire.
So what about the reactions to this? I mean, it surely can't be part of the kind of core foreign policy establishment in America, can't be part of their plans to have the French foreign minister saying we're going to defend the territorial integrity of EU members, i.e., we will respond to any threat to Denmark's ownership of Greenland. I mean, this is quite unusual stuff.
It's not that unusual, considering we've had 4 years of Trump already before. And initially, when Trump started to become unorthodox with American policy issues, there was a reaction from the establishment, from both the diplomatic and certain quarters of the political establishment, with regards to his kind of diversion on areas such as the Middle East and other areas, and the way he was conducting these particular negotiations and policies. But he won through in the end. I mean, he ignored them to a large extent, and he stood his ground. He's had 4 years of that experience already, and now I think he feels that he understands the establishment. He knows how to control them. He knows how to manipulate them. So he's in a much better experienced position.
So do you think that fact, and the fact that, of course, unless he alters the American Constitution, he can't stand again for president, means that we're going to see Trump unleashed, as opposed to, I mean, perhaps not many people realised it, but Trump at least semi-contained during the first presidency?
No, it is, like you said, it's Trump unleashed, because he doesn't have to now worry about another election like Biden was worrying about his election, or the Democrat election, and that affected primarily his decision making on the Middle East with regard to Israel and Netanyahu, and he came off as weak and very unable to effectively dictate anything in many quarters, because he had to keep an eye on, for instance, the Jewish vote and the impact of that on the re-election. But here, Trump has no such strings attached. So there's no such anchoring happening here.
And do you think that this is actually dangerous, in the sense that, I mean, I guess a lot of the sort of centre or liberal foreign policy figures would say, this is destabilizing, this is economically destabilizing, it's potentially militarily destabilizing, that we are actually entering, because of Trump's inability to perform in the normal foreign policy parameters, we're actually in a more dangerous world.
Well, no, I don't think we're in a more dangerous world. I think what was dangerous, what the world didn't recognize, was how dangerous America was already, because they hid behind the idea of a rule-based order. So, we've had a destruction of the Middle East, one country after another, interventionism in Afghanistan. I mean, you can count how much destruction the Americans have caused abroad. So it's not that we're entering a more peaceful world as a result of that. No, it's just a continuum of arguably history's most dangerous nation. And what we have here is basically that, like the mask has been taken off. They're not hiding behind. He's not hiding behind any United Nations or international legal principles. They're just saying this is what is our strategic interest, and this is what we're going to do. As an example, he's put leaders on notice. There's no kind of international legal recourse to any of this. And his comments on the Middle East regarding Hamas, etc., that then they're going to see hell if they don't, bend down to my will. This is Rome. This is Roman Emperor speaking. This is as dangerous as it was before. But I would say that it was more dangerous before because people were really fooled sometimes about the American rhetoric on democracy, human rights, international legal principles, etc.
Okay. Well, thanks very much to Dr. Noman Hanif for giving us his insights into the developing Trump administration's or the incoming Trump administration's foreign policy. Dr. Noman Hanif, their director of the London Centre for International Relations. And of course, here on Analysis, we will be following Donald Trump through his inauguration into office and all those issues that we've discussed today and seeing how they play out. But for today, thanks for watching.